Chapter 1. What if the you talk to is just an echo in an empty room? Close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, not yet, just to listen. Listen to the silence behind the hum of your computer, the distant sigh of a car on a wet street, the gentle rhythm of your own breath. And in that silence, I want you to ask yourself a question. Where are you right now? Where is the you that is hearing my voice? Is it behind your eyes? Between your ears? A quiet captain in the darkened bridge of your skull, looking out through the twin windows of your eyes. It feels like that, doesn't it? A place, a center, a single point of light in the darkness where the world is experienced. The philosopher René Descartes pointed to this feeling centuries ago. Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. It is the one thing we cannot doubt, the sensation of being a self, a thinker, a witness. It is the most real thing any of us will ever know. But what if it's a trick of the light, a beautiful, necessary, and utterly convincing illusion? The philosopher Dennett invites us to consider a strange and unsettling idea. He asks us to imagine a theater, a Cartesian theater. It's a beautiful, old, velvet-draped theater, and in this theater, there is a single audience member, the self, the soul, the you. And on the stage of your mind, the world is projected. Sights, sounds, smells, memories, thoughts, they all file onto the stage, perform for you. The central meaner, the boss, the one who approves it all, and then depart. It's an irresistible image. It feels true. It explains our experience perfectly. But Dennett, with the gentle precision of a master watchmaker, takes this theater apart, and he finds nothing. No stage, no special screen, no velvet seat for the self to sit. He finds only a vast, chaotic, bureaucratic system of brain processes, millions of tiny specialists, none of them in charge, all of them chattering away, processing information, making drafts of reality, and discarding them. The sound of my voice isn't heard by a single listener. It's processed by one cluster of neurons for pitch, another for tone, another cross-referencing it with memories of other voices, another assigning emotional weight. There is no finishing line where it all comes together for the boss to review. The coming together is the process. The sense of a unified you is the final draft. It's the story the brain tells itself about what is happening. The you talk to inside your head, that running commentary, that narrator of your life, is not the president of the company. It's the press secretary. It's not the general leading the army. It's the historian writing the report after the battle, crafting a clean, sensible narrative from the bloody, confused chaos of the campaign. It spins a tale of a single, decisive leader making choices. But the choices were made by a million tiny skirmishes in the neural dust long before the story was written. This can feel cold, empty. Like being told the love of your life is just a collection of chemical reactions. It can feel like a loss. But I want you to see the profound liberation in it. All those times you've been locked in argument with yourself, the committee in your head screaming, the narrator spinning tales of anxiety, regret, second-guessing. That is not some fundamental you failing. That is just the press secretary reading from a chaotic and conflicting set of reports. You are not the narrator of the story. You are the whole book. You are not the listener in the theater. You are the entire theater, the stage, the lights, the actors, the play itself. The echo in the room is just a sound. The room is everything. And when you feel that, truly feel it in your bones, a peculiar peace settles in. The pressure on that single point of light, that little soul self that feels so responsible for everything, begins to lift. It was never meant to carry that weight. It was only ever meant to tell the tale. And as you drift towards sleep, let that tale soften. The narrator can take the night off. The processes will continue. The heart will beat. The lungs will breathe. The world will turn. And you, the vast and silent theater of your being, can simply rest. That idea lingers, doesn't it? The self, not as a ruler, but as a story. It changes the room you're in. It makes the air feel different. And it leads us, quietly, to a second door. A door that asks what happens to that story when it isn't just about you, but about everything you see. Chapter 2. Is the world you see merely a story? Your brain is whispering to keep you safe? If the self is a story, then what of the world that self inhabits? Look at the room around you. The soft edge of a desk lamp against the darkness, the deep grain of wood, the cool weight of a glass of water. It feels solid, real, immediate. Your senses are your faithful scouts, bringing you direct, unvarnished news from the frontier of reality. You are there, the world is here, and the connection is direct. But what if that, too, is a magnificent draft, composed by the silent, frantic scribes of your brain? We believe we see the world as it is, but we don't. We see a version of the world that was useful for our ancestors to see. Your visual cortex is not a camera, it is a prediction engine. It is constantly making guesses, based on past experience, about what should be there. It then uses the scant, ambiguous data from your eyes merely to check its work, to see if it needs to make any minor corrections. Most of what you see is this pre-prepared simulation. You are living in a controlled hallucination, a user interface designed for efficiency, not for truth. Your brain hides the blind spot in your eye. It smooths over the jerky movements of your eyes, called saccades, creating the illusion of a stable visual field. It edits out the constant roar of blood flow in your ears so you can hear the predator in the grass. It presents a world of solid objects and clear colors, while physics tells us we are surrounded by a vibrating swarm of probabilities and mostly empty space. Your brain is not interested in truth. It is interested in survival. And for survival, a good story is far more valuable than a perfect photograph. It tells you the story of a solid floor, so you don't fall through it. It tells you the story of a looming shadow as a potential threat, so you jump first and ask questions later. It tells you the story of a unified self, so you can navigate social complexities and plan for a future. These are fictions, but they are useful fictions. Dennett calls this the intentional stance. We interpret the world, from rocks to people to our own minds, as if it is filled with intentions, purposes, and stories, because it is the best, quickest tool we have for making sense of a blindingly complex universe. We see a face in the moon, anger in a storm, love in a pet's eyes. We are inveterate storytellers, and the first and greatest story we tell is the story of the world itself. This is not a lie. It is a relationship. The reality is out there, of course. But we are always in conversation with it, and the conversation shapes what we hear. You are not a passive receiver of reality. You are a partner in its creation. The world you experience is a dance between what is and what your brain needs it to be. So the next time you feel absolutely, unshakably certain of something, pause. Consider the possibility that you are clinging to a draft, a story, a version that was written for you by eons of evolution to keep you safe, to keep you moving, to keep you alive. It may not be the final truth. And in that space between the story and the truth, there is wonder, there is humility, there is the quiet awe of realizing that the real world is even stranger, more complex, and more beautiful than the one your brain so kindly and so efficiently prepared for you. Let that awe be the blanket you pull up around you tonight. The world is not what you think. It is so much more. Two stories, the story of the self, the story of the world, and now, the final turn of the key. The question that brings it all home. If it's all a story, what does that mean for the storyteller? Chapter 3. If consciousness is an illusion, who is the magician being fooled? This is the question that hangs in the air after all others have been asked, the grand paradox. If Dennett is right, if the centralized self is a myth, and conscious experience is a swirl of competing narratives, a bundle of user illusions, then what in the world are we experiencing right now? This feeling of being, this luminous awareness. If it's an illusion, who is being illusioned? It feels like a devastating checkmate. To call consciousness an illusion seems to be the one thing you cannot do, because the illusion itself requires a conscious experiencer to be fooled. It seems like a logical fallacy, a snake eating its own tail. But Dennett, ever the careful mechanic, asks us to reconsider what we mean by an illusion. Think of a classic magic trick. The magician saws the woman in half. You see it happen. The saw goes through the box, two separate halves are shown, the experience undeniable. But of course, the woman is not actually sawn in half. Your brain has been tricked into perceiving an impossibility. Now, who was fooled? You were. But what is the you that was fooled? It was your entire perceptual apparatus. There was no tiny homunculus inside your head that saw the real trick and was then duped by a false image. The entire system produced a false belief. The illusion is not a picture presented to a secret self. The illusion is the false belief generated by the system. Consciousness is like that, Dennett suggests. It's not that there's a real, mysterious, qualia-filled show happening somewhere, and a fake one shown to you. The show is the only show there is. The illusion of consciousness is not that we are being shown a fake picture of a real thing. The illusion is that we are convinced there is a mysterious, non-physical, central thing called consciousness to begin with. We are like the audience member who, after the magic trick, insists, "But I saw her being sawn in half. Therefore, real magic must exist." No, you saw what you saw. The experience was real. The explanation you are giving for that experience is the illusion, the belief in the magic, the belief in the Cartesian theater, the belief in a secret, invisible self that is the viewer of the inner movie. The experience itself is utterly real. The pain you feel is real. The joy is real. The taste of cold water on a hot day is real. The love for your child is the realest thing there is. Dennett is not denying the data. He is offering a different interpretation of what that data is. He is saying the magic is not supernatural. It's natural. It's not a mystery. It's a mechanism. A vastly complex, beautiful, emergent mechanism. The magician is not some ghost in the machine. The magician is the machine itself, and the one being fooled is the system's own press secretary, that narrative-generating module that keeps writing stories about a magical central self because that's the only vocabulary it has. So who is the magician? You are the whole physical, embodied, messy, beautiful, biological you. And who is being fooled? You are. The story you tell yourself about yourself. And in the space between the magician and the audience, between the machine and the story, between the truth and the tale, there is no conflict. There is only a single breathtaking process. A universe of matter has organized itself in such a way that it can experience itself. It can tell stories about itself. It can wonder about itself. You are the universe, feeling its own weight, hearing its own sounds, and trying in the quiet of the night to understand its own nature. There is no greater magic than that. So, let the story go. Let the need for a central commander fade. You are not a tiny ruler in a bone palace. You are a conversation the cosmos is having with itself. And that conversation is gentle. It is kind. And it is drifting now, softly, into the realm of dream, where all stories began. Sleep now and wonder. Chapter 4. If your mind is a castle, who is drawing the maps? You believe are real. Close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, not yet, just to go inward. Picture, if you will, a vast and ancient castle. This is your consciousness. It feels solid, doesn't it? Stone upon stone, tower upon tower. You know its halls. You know the sound of your own footsteps in its grand chambers. You know the view from its highest windows. This is your home. This is you. It feels like the most real thing in existence. But tonight, I want you to consider a different possibility. A whisper from the edge of thought. What if the castle isn't what it seems? What if you've never actually walked most of its halls? What if, instead of a lord surveying his domain, you are more like a guest who has been given a meticulously drawn map? A map that shows only certain corridors, highlights certain treasures, and conveniently omits the crumbling, unfinished wings, the dusty attics full of forgotten things, the deep dungeons where older, stranger things are kept under lock and key. You navigate your life by this map. You trust it implicitly. You believe the map is the territory. But WHO drew it? And why? This is where the work of Dennett begins to feel less like philosophy and more like a gentle, profound unmasking. He suggests that our conscious experience, this feeling of a continuous, unified self, sitting in a control room behind our eyes, watching the world on a screen and pulling levers, is a magnificent illusion, a user interface. It's not a lie, it's a story. The most important story you will ever be told. Your brain is not a single thing. It is a vast, teeming parliament of competing processes, a chaotic city of specialists, all working at once, mostly in the dark. One part processes color, another shape, another sound, another emotion, another memory. They are all chattering away, a cacophony of voices in a language you cannot hear. And from this chaos, order must emerge. A narrative must be spun. Because an organism that hesitates, that is paralyzed by a million contradictory signals, is an organism that gets eaten. So, a story is created, a center of narrative gravity, a single, simplified version of events. This is you. The you that feels like the author is, in a very real sense, the main character. The brain takes the messy, disjointed, and overwhelmingly complex data of existence and weaves it into a coherent tale. I saw the bear, I felt fear, I ran. It happened in a blur of neural fireworks, but the story we get is clean, linear, and makes perfect sense. It's a map. And it is a map drawn not by a single cartographer, but by the emergent consensus of the entire chaotic kingdom. Think of the last time you drove a familiar route and arrived with no memory of the journey. who was driving. The map of you driving was being drawn, but you weren't consulting it. The processes were handling it until something required the attention of the narrator. A detour, a near miss, the beauty of a sunset. Then the story snaps back into focus. Ah, yes, I am driving. This is not a diminishing thought, it is an expansion. It means you are not a tiny, fragile captain on a bridge, struggling to steer a massive ship. You are the ship. Every part of it. The creak of the hull, the billow of the sails, the wind in the rigging. The conscious you is the story the ship tells itself about its journey across the sea. It is a necessary fiction for navigation, but it is a mistake to confuse the logbook for the ocean. So, back to the castle. The maps you hold, they are drawn by necessity. They highlight the paths that keep you safe, the rooms that are habitable, the threats that are immediate. They leave the rest in shadow. The real work, the immense, silent, and endless labor of being, goes on in those unseen places. The magic isn't in the little figure you move around the map labeled me. The magic is in the countless, nameless draftsmen in the basement, drawing the map in real time, making a world for you to live in. Chapter 5. What is the price of the ticket to the greatest show you never asked to see? There is a show playing. It has been running since the moment you first opened your eyes. To the blur of light and sound, that was your world. It is the most spectacular production ever staged. The sets are breathtakingly detailed. The emotions feel real enough to break your heart. The story is compelling, terrifying, joyous. It is the show of your life, and you have the best seat in the house, front and center. You are the audience of one. But have you ever stopped to ask, what is the price of admission? It seems free. It seems like a gift. You just are, and the show just plays. But Daniel Dennett would suggest that nothing of such complexity comes without a cost. The ticket is paid for in a currency so fundamental we rarely think to name it: ignorance. To have this clean, clear, manageable show, this user interface of consciousness, we must be shielded from the backstage chaos. The ticket grants you a flawless experience, but it also agrees to hide the wires, the pulleys, the stagehands scrambling in the dark, the actor sweating under his makeup. The show requires that you not see the machinery. The price of your coherent reality is that you are not aware of the infinite drafts your brain writes and discards every second to produce the final script you experience. Think of your vision. You feel like you see the world in high definition, in full color, all at once. But you don't. Your eyes have a tiny, high-resolution focal point called the fovea, and the rest is a blurry, vague periphery. Your eyes are constantly making tiny, jerking movements called saccades, sampling little pieces of the world. Your brain takes these fuzzy, shaky snapshots and paints a stable, wide-angle, high-def picture for you. It fills in the gaps with what it expects to be there. You have paid for the experience of a seamless reality with the truth of its construction. You are not seeing the world. You are seeing the brain's best guess at the world. This is the price. You trade the overwhelming, confusing, and paralyzing truth of how things are actually made for a beautiful, usable story. This is not a deception to be angry about. It is a miracle to be grateful for. It is the deal that allows you to function, to decide, to love, to fear, to act. Without it, you would be lost in the noise. But there is a second, deeper cost. and this one is more personal. The ticket to the show also means you must experience yourself as the central character. You must feel the weight of agency, the sting of regret, the glow of pride. You must believe in the protagonist. Yet, if consciousness is a story the brain tells, then that protagonist, the you that feels so solid, is also part of the production. The thoughts you think you are thinking often feel more like thoughts you are hearing. Where did they come from? They just appear on the stage of your mind. The emotional response you have to them feels visceral, real. But it too is part of the performance. The price, then, is a certain kind of solitude. You are alone in the theater. The show is for you. The character of you is written for you. And while it feels like you are writing the lines, you are also in a way just reciting them. The great silent backstage machinery of your biology, your history, your genetics, your culture, all of it is the playwright. You are the audience and the lead actor, but you are not the director, not in the way you feel you are. This is not to say you have no control. The magic is that your audience reaction, your conscious attention, feeds back into the system. It influences the next act. The show is interactive, but it is not authored by a single, ghostly self. It is an emergent property, a dance. So the price of the ticket is the acceptance of a glorious, necessary illusion. It is the agreement to be enthralled by the magic trick, without needing to tear the magician apart to find the secret. The secret is that the secret is everywhere. It is in every neuron, every process, every whispered calculation happening in the dark. The price is the willingness to enjoy the show, even as you, in your quietest moments, sense the immense, hidden effort that makes it possible. And perhaps that knowing, that deep, humbling awareness of the cost, makes the show even more precious. You didn't ask for it, but my goodness, what a performance it is. A soft pause, a breath in the darkness. The first two questions have been lanterns held up to the architecture of the self, revealing its wondrous mechanics. But a final door remains, one that leads not to how the self is built, but to what remains when we truly understand that construction. It is the most personal door of all. Chapter 6. When the final veil drops, will you find a wizard, or just a man, grateful for the applause? We have wandered through the castle of the mind, seen the maps and the map makers. We have sat in the theater and considered the price of our ticket. We have seen the strings and the pulleys. And this leads us, inevitably, to the final question. The one that waits in the quiet after the show is over. If this is all true, if the conscious self is not a ruler, but a story, not a captain, but the ship itself, then what happens when the story ends? What is left when the final curtain falls? There is a fear here, a deep, ancient tremor in the soul. We have been taught that to remove the central, commanding self is to invite chaos, to diminish our humanity, to rob life of its meaning and reduce us to mere biological machines. If there is no wizard behind the curtain, then is the magic gone? Is the show meaningless? What if the opposite is true? Think of the greatest magic trick you have ever seen. You are astounded. You are filled with wonder. And then, suppose the magician comes to you afterward and shows you how it was done. He shows you the hidden mirror, the false bottom, the clever misdirection. Does the wonder disappear? Or does it transform? It is no longer the wonder of believing in the impossible, but the wonder of appreciating the incredible skill, the breathtaking ingenuity, the years of practice that went into creating that single shining moment of astonishment. The magic is not gone. It is simply moved. It is moved from the supernatural to the natural, from the impossible to the deeply, profoundly human. This is the gift of looking at consciousness through Dennett's eyes. It is not a reduction, it is a celebration. When you pull back the final veil, you do not find nothing. You do not find an empty room. You find something far more magnificent than a solitary wizard. You find the entire troupe. You find the countless silent processes, the stagehands, the lighting technicians, the set designers, the writers, that have been working in harmony your entire life to create the experience of being you. You find not a ghost in the machine, but the majesty of the machine itself. The self does not disappear. The illusion does not shatter, leaving you empty. Instead, the illusion becomes beautiful. You stop identifying solely with the character in the story and start identifying with the author of the story, which is not a single thing, but the entire collaborative, creative system of your being. The weight lifts. The pressure to be a perfect, singular commander dissolves. You are not a fragile dictator, terrified of a coup. You are a thriving ecosystem. You are a community. You are a symphony. And this changes everything. Your mistakes are not the failures of a bad captain, but the necessary revisions of a creative process. Your intuitions are not mysterious messages from a deep self, but the quiet voice of all those hidden specialists, offering their expert opinion. Your life is not a test you might fail, but a story you are co-creating with every breath, every sensation, every thought that arises from the darkness. When the final veil drops, you do not find a wizard. You find yourself, not the small story self, but the vast, biological, miraculous, messy, and breathtakingly complex process of life that is reading these words, breathing this air, and feeling the weight of the blankets. You find a man, not on a lonely stage, but standing in the midst of the most incredible production team imaginable. And the feeling is not one of loss, but of overwhelming gratitude. Gratitude for the show, gratitude for the audience, gratitude for the chance to have been both, even for a little while. The meaning was never in the wizard, it was always in the magic, and the magic is real. So let that be the thought you take with you into the quiet. You are not less for being a beautiful story. You are more, so much more. The castle is vast, the show is magnificent, and you are the castle, the show, and the one who gets to experience it all. There is nothing more real than that. Now, just listen to the quiet hum of it all and rest. Chapter 7. What if the world is not a picture in your mind, but a user interface you've learned to trust? Close your eyes for a moment. Not to sleep, not yet, but just to listen, to the sound of my voice, to the faint hum of the world outside your window, to the soft rhythm of your own breath. And now, open them. Look at the dim shape of the door across the room, the soft glow of a device, the way the shadows pool in the corner. It feels immediate, doesn't it? As if your eyes are a window, and the world is simply there, presented to you, a finished painting. This is the most persistent illusion of all, the illusion that what you are experiencing is a direct, unfiltered broadcast of reality. But what if it isn't? What if it's something far stranger, far more practical? Daniel Dennett invites us to consider a different metaphor. Not a theater, not a cinema, but something more akin to the screen of your computer or your phone. Think of that desktop. You see a little icon of a folder. You don't see the immense labyrinthine complexity of the code that makes that folder exist. The millions of transistors, the streams of binary data, the intricate architecture of the operating system. You see a simple, clean symbol. You click on it, and it does what you expect. It's a user interface. It's a masterpiece of simplification, designed for one purpose: to be useful, to allow you to navigate a complexity that would otherwise be utterly incomprehensible. Now, consider the taste of coffee in the morning, that rich, dark, comforting bitterness. Is that taste in the coffee? Or is it the brain's perfect, simplified icon for a wildly complex chemical interaction? A way of labeling something potentially important, a stimulant, a source of energy, with a simple, memorable sensory tag. Consider the weight of a stone in your hand. That solid, cool, undeniable heaviness. Is that the stone's true essence? Or is it the brain's user interface, its dashboard, giving you the most relevant data points? Weight, texture, temperature, all synthesized into a single, usable feeling of stoneness? Your consciousness, then, is not a projector of a film called reality. It is the silent, endlessly efficient designer of a user interface for survival. It takes the blinding, booming, confusing chaos of raw data hitting your senses, and it simplifies it. It edits it. It highlights the important bits. The shape that might be a predator, the sound that might be a child's cry, the color of ripe fruit, and it ignores the rest. The brain is not interested in truth, in some philosophical, absolute sense. It is interested in utility, in keeping the story going. The world you feel so tangibly around you is a grand, immersive, multi-sensory dashboard. And you are the user, who has learned since birth to trust the icons, the symbols, the readouts. This changes everything, doesn't it? It means the warmth you feel from a smile isn't just a physiological response. It's a perfectly designed icon for connection, for tribe, for safety. The ache of loneliness isn't just a pain. It's a stark, urgent warning light on the dashboard, telling you to seek out your kind. The breathtaking beauty of a sunset is the interface's most artistic flourish, a way of making you stop and pay attention and file away the location of a safe place, a source of warmth, a moment of peace. There is a profound comfort in this. It means you are not separate from the world, peering out at it from a lonely cockpit inside your skull. You are of it. Your interface is built from it, refined by it. The trust you place in the solidity of the floor beneath you is a trust earned over a lifetime of interaction. The world is real, but your experience of it is a story, a beautiful, functional, essential story. And knowing that you are immersed in a story doesn't make the story any less real. It just makes you appreciate the genius of the storyteller, the ancient, silent storyteller that is your own biology, working in the dark, to give you a world you can understand and navigate and love. So when you feel the world is real, know that it is. But when you feel it as beautiful or terrible or meaningful, know that this is the interface speaking. The most personal, most intimate operating system ever designed. And it was designed for you. And so we see the world not as a given, but as a gift of interpretation, a narrative built from necessity. But if the world is a story the brain tells, then who precisely is the narrator? If we are not the audience in the theater, are we perhaps the playwright? Or is there another, even more quiet, more subtle presence in the dark, simply turning the pages. Chapter 8. Are you the author of your thoughts or merely the librarian? Tending to a self-writing book. Let's follow this path a little further inward, down the quiet corridors of the self. We carry around this notion, this unshakable feeling, that there is a central commander inside, a CEO of the mind, a singular you that thinks your thoughts, makes your decisions, calls the shots. You decide to lift your finger, and it lifts. You decide to recall a memory, and it appears. It feels like a monarchy of one. But what if that too is the most convincing fiction the brain ever produced? What if you are not the author of the book of your life, but the librarian who first finds the book on the shelf? Think of a time a song got stuck in your head, a fragment of a melody, a few lines of a chorus, looping endlessly without your permission. Where did it come from? You didn't will it into being. It just arrived. Or a name you're trying to recall. It sits on the tip of your tongue. Elusive. You can't command it into existence. You have to wait, patiently, until it decides, of its own accord, to emerge from the archives. Or consider your dreams, those bizarre, sprawling narratives that unfold with no central planner, no conscious director. Stories being written in the dark, without your supervision. Dennett asks us to consider the mind not as a throne room, but as a vast, humming library, a library that is constantly, endlessly writing its own books. Memories, sensations, half-formed ideas, chunks of melody, fragments of conversation. They are all being drafted, edited, and stored by countless parallel processes, none of which are you in the conscious sense. They just work, like the crew of a vast ship operating below decks. And what is consciousness? What is this feeling of you? It's not the captain giving orders, it's the librarian. It's the process that has access to the finished books. It's the function that strolls through the stacks, pulling a volume here, a volume there, and experiencing its contents. It reads the book of a perception. A cup of coffee. It reads the book of a memory. That summer by the lake. It reads the book of an emerging thought. I should call my brother. And here is the magic trick, the grand illusion of self. The librarian reads the thought, I should call my brother. And because the librarian is the one experiencing it, it attributes authorship. It says, I have decided to call my brother. But the decision was made elsewhere, in the silent, wordless workings of the library. The thought was drafted by unseen scribes. The librarian merely discovered it. You are not dictating the narrative, you are receiving it. You are the first and most attentive audience to your own mind. This is not a demotion, it is a liberation. Think of the weight it removes, the anxiety that you must micromanage every thought, every feeling. You don't have to. The library is ancient and it is wise. It has been writing your story since before you had words. The guilt that comes from a sudden, unbidden, unkind thought. It's just a book you found on the shelf. You are not the author of every volume in your library. You are the curator. You can choose which books to take down and read obsessively, and which to leave gathering dust. You can choose which stories to believe, which narratives to build your life upon. The you that you talk to inside your head is not the master of ceremonies. It is the narrative center of gravity. It is the story the brain tells itself about itself to make sense of all the chaos. It is the librarian's own autobiography, written in real time, compiled from all the books it has encountered. This feeling of being a continuous, unified self is the ultimate user interface. It is the clean, simple desktop icon that hides the unimaginable complexity of the neural machinery whirring beneath. And it is a miracle of evolution. It allows us to plan, to reflect, to take responsibility for the narratives we choose to perpetuate. You may not have written the first draft of the thought, but you have absolute say in the edit. You are the keeper of the story, and that is a sacred enough role for anyone. So we are the quiet librarians of a self-writing world. But if that is so, for whom does the library exist? If the show is not for some internal homunculus, not for a captain in the bridge, then what is it all for? When the last page is turned and the final light is dimmed, what remains in the silent hall? Chapter 9. When the final curtain falls, will you find an audience of one waiting in the silent theater? We come now to the quietest question, the most personal. We've peeled back the layers. The world is a user interface. The self is a narrative. But this creates a peculiar loneliness, doesn't it? A sense that if it's all a story, then perhaps nothing is truly real. Perhaps it's all for nothing. If consciousness is a magnificent trick, a show put on by the brain with no central ticket holder, then what is the point of it all? The beauty, the love, the anguish. Is it all just neural noise echoing in a cavernous skull? When the performance of your life is over, will there be anyone there to remember it, to give it meaning? This is the fear. The fear that Dennett's vision leads to a cold, mechanical universe. But what if it leads to the opposite? What if it leads you to the most authentic, the most meaningful moment of all? Imagine a theater. Not a grand public hall, but a small, private playhouse. It has only one seat. For your entire life, the stage has been alive with drama and light. The stagehands, your unconscious processes, have been tirelessly building sets, cueing lights, feeding lines to the actors. You, the conscious you, have been sitting in that single seat, utterly captivated by the show. You've laughed, you've cried, you've been on the edge of your seat. You believed it was all real because the production is that good. Now imagine the play ends. The narrative of your life concludes. The actors take their bow and leave the stage. The lights on the set go dark, and for the first time, you are alone in the theater. The spell is broken. You are no longer lost in the story. And you turn around, and you see that the theater is empty. There is no other audience. There never was. It was just you, watching. And for a moment, this feels like the ultimate loneliness, the ultimate deception. But then, a deeper realization dawns. You look back at the empty stage, still echoing with the ghosts of the performance, and you understand. The show was never for a critic. It was never for a divine audience, grading your performance. It wasn't for the masses. The intricate sets, the clever dialogue, the heartbreaking drama. It was all for you, the only one who was ever there. The entire production, the entire lifetime of work, was an act of profound generosity. A gift, from the deepest, wordless parts of your being to the part that gets to experience it. To you. The meaning was never in the approval of an external audience. The meaning was in the experience itself, in the feeling of the sun on your skin, the brain's beautiful way of making you feel alive, in the ache of love, its way of making connection the most important thing in the universe. The show is not a lie. It is the most real thing you will ever know. It is the universe, filtered through you, and transformed into story for you. So when the final curtain falls, you will not find an empty house. You will find that the house was always full because it contained the entire world synthesized into experience. You will not find that it was meaningless. You will find that its meaning was absolute and private because it was written in the language of your own senses, your own emotions. You were both the production and the audience, the gift and the recipient. This is not a lonely thought. It is the most intimate thought possible. Your life is not a performance for some distant God. It is a quiet, endless conversation between the depths of you and the surface of you, between the silent, tireless stage crew and the wide-eyed viewer in the single seat. And every moment of joy, of sorrow, of peace is a moment of that conversation, a moment of that gift being given and received. So close your eyes now. Let the day's performance fade to a gentle hum. There is no need to analyze the plot tonight. No need to worry about the reviews. Just be the audience. Rest in the quiet darkness of your own theater. Listen to the rhythm of your breath, the gentle stage managing of your body, keeping you alive. Feel the warmth of the covers, a perfect icon for safety. The show is over for today, and it was beautiful, and tomorrow, when the curtains rise again, it will be beautiful once more. Not because it is objectively true, but because it is yours, and that is the only truth that has ever truly mattered. Sleep now. The theater is dark. The audience of one is at peace. Close your eyes now, and let the weight of the day settle. Let it fall away from you, like a heavy coat you no longer need to carry. The door is closed. The world outside, with its demands and its certainties, is muted. And in here, in this quiet space we share, we can ask the questions that the noise of the day drowns out. The questions that are not about doing or having or becoming, but about being. What is it truly to be? To be conscious? To be a self navigating this strange and beautiful dream we agree to call reality? Tonight, we wander the edges of that question, guided by the quiet, revolutionary thoughts of a man who spent a lifetime asking how the magic trick works. Dennett. This is not a lecture. It is a shared contemplation, a slow walk through the gardens of the mind, just before sleep. Chapter 10. What if the world is not a painting, but the frame your mind built to hold it? We like to believe, don't we, that our mind is a kind of gallery, a quiet, private museum where the world is displayed for us. We stand before the painting of a sunset and feel its warmth. We observe the portrait of a loved one and feel a connection. It feels so real, so immediate. This is the world presented to me. But what if that's not it at all? What if your consciousness is not the curator of the gallery, but the architect who, without your ever knowing, built the very walls that define it? What if the world you experience is not the thing in itself, but the edges your own brain has drawn around the chaos of raw existence, just to make it manageable, to make it holdable? This is the first whisper from the edge. This is the idea that what you see is not the painting, but the frame. And the frame is of your own making. Think of it like this. Imagine you are in a vast, dark warehouse. It is infinite. It is filled with everything, every vibration, every wavelength of light, every particle, every possibility. It is a roaring, overwhelming cacophony of isness. To be in that space would be madness. It would be to drown in data. So your mind, this magnificent evolved instrument, does not show you the warehouse. It could never. Instead, it does something extraordinary. It builds a small, quiet room inside that warehouse. It builds 4 walls. It puts in a single window. And it only allows a very specific, curated selection of that infinite data to pass through that window. The light that comes through is only a narrow slice of the spectrum. The sounds are only those within a certain range. It simplifies, it filters, it ignores the vast majority of what is actually there. And it tells you, softly, convincingly, this view from the window, this is the world. You are not looking at reality. You are looking at your mind's user interface for reality. A simplified, cartoonish sketch that is just detailed enough to keep you alive, to help you navigate, to allow you to pick up a coffee cup without consciously calculating its mass and trajectory. The cup isn't really solid as you experience it. It's a cloud of particles. The red of the sunset isn't really red. It's a wavelength your brain has, quite arbitrarily, decided to paint with the emotional color of passion, of ending, of beauty. Your brain is a master framer. It takes the incomprehensible vastness of the universe and it builds a small, comprehensible frame around a tiny piece of it. And it says, here, this is it. This is all you need to see. And we believe it. We have to. Because the alternative is the dizzying, terrifying infinity of the warehouse. So, we live our lives inside the frame, admiring the picture, never once considering that the walls around us, the very boundaries of our perception, are a construction, a useful, beautiful, necessary illusion. And the question then becomes not what is in the picture, but who decided on the size of the frame, and what lies just outside its edges in the darkness we have been taught to ignore. This changes everything, doesn't it? It changes an argument with a spouse. It's no longer a clash of 2 objective realities, but a clash of 2 different frames, 2 different architectures of perception, built by 2 different brains. It changes the way you look at a problem. The problem isn't necessarily the thing itself, it's the confines of the frame you've built around it. What if you could, just for a moment, push one of those walls back an inch? What new data would flood in? What new possibilities would appear that were always there, just beyond your field of view? This is not a call to despair. It is an invitation to profound humility and to a quiet kind of power. The power to understand that your reality is negotiable, that the walls are not stone, but of your own making. And if you built them, perhaps you can gently, thoughtfully redesign them. You can choose a bigger window. You can change the view. The world is not a fixed painting you must accept. It is a frame, and you are its quiet, relentless architect. Let that thought settle, not as a burden, but as a liberation. The walls are yours.